Hey guys, what's going on? I am at my mom's in America and I have a video today about mental health and astrology. So let's get right into it. All right, so I have my little paper to take notes. So first thing I want to talk about is Mercury. So obviously, when we try to, having a psychology and astrology background, right, I always try to bring the two together. And often what you see in people, one very big cause of mental health issues seen in a birth chart is Mercury making squares to certain planets, right? Obviously, Mercury is what rules our thoughts, our cognitions, our brain in general, right? So it makes a lot of sense why it would play such a huge role in this. So when you have like Pluto, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, squaring, opposing, doing, even a quincunx in some instances to Mercury, it's oftentimes very difficult, right? I can go into each one. So I've seen a lot of people who have Mercury, let me just write this down. Mercury square Pluto, right? Where it's very difficult for them to have positive thoughts, right? It's almost like there needs to be a transformation in terms of the inner dialogue, in terms of they can have a very it can lead to a lot of intelligence and a very very observant type of person, detective type of person who can go beneath the surface. But what they often, especially from a young age, have to battle with having a lot of like very. It's almost like that Scorpio element where people who are very, very Scorpio are very aware of the darker sides of reality from a young age. So a lot of times with the Pluto Mercury, it's almost like sometimes you know too much. And when you know so much, there's so much that you can be negative about, or there's so much that you can be that is ugly in this world, and that can come to the forefront. And a lot of it is about taking in the shadow, being very aware of the shadow, and especially around like negative self-talk and so forth. And that's the same thing with the Saturn, right? Saturn, Mercury can lead to a lot of shyness. It can lead to depression, melancholy. It can lead to a sort of self-defeating self-talk amongst many things. And oftentimes people like that, it takes them the first 30 years to come out of their shell to really be able to feel like they like their word and their truth and what they're trying to communicate is worth listening to, right? So then Uranus is one I see a lot. So Uranus is a very interesting one because Uranus, Venus, and Mercury is like geniuses, right? Straight up. Not like every single one has a genius IQ, but they're very outside the box thinking. Now I always see people with Mercury square Uranus who come to me for sessions. Why is that? It's probably one of my top 3, top 5 top aspects. Number 1 is Venus in Aries somehow. Any other astrologers watching this, if you've had the same thing, let me know, because it's literally like thousands of clients in my life, probably 45 or 50% have Venus in Aries, and I don't have any Aries planets. Yeah, but anyways, so with Uranus and Mercury, oftentimes what I see is that, obviously it depends on the charts, but with my clients, a lot of times there's other elements in the chart too that show this disconnection with other people's, with the mainstream thinking, and a very divergent and unique way of communicating, usually very, very different philosophies. It's very rebellious. It's someone who, it can be linked to ADHD and the mind moving at 1,000,000 miles per hour, and then also just being kind of different when it comes to what you're interested in. And the same thing with like the Pluto, and this is just any kind of aspect with the planet besides sextile and trine. But yeah, I think that with Uranus, it definitely can be a challenge to, especially if you're from a more traditional family, to feel like your opinion is valued, to feel like you are not crazy. A lot of people with that get gaslit and made to believe that they're not smart, but really their minds are usually way, way ahead of the time. But it can also lead to a lot of anxiety, because think about it, Uranus is a super fast planet. So when it hits Mercury, it can lead to overthinking. It can lead to just kind of like, that tension in the mind that then manifests in the body, and difficulty with listening, difficulty with settling, right? It adds almost like an electricity to the brain that can feel very ungrounded, depending on the whole rest of the chart. So you have to really get a full chart reading to see how that could fit in, or anything could fit in with the rest of the chart. Because for one person, it could be very, very difficult. For one person, it could be, let's say, someone who has a very earth-oriented chart, but then they have that aspect. Well, it'd be a lot different than someone who has like an all Gemini chart, you know? Then there's Neptune. So that one's interesting because I have a lot of experience with that one, and it gives a very skewed view of reality. People with that, whether it's square, I'm more familiar with the square, but just Mercury, and it could be conjunction too, whatever, right? Now it gives an amazing intuition, but a lot of times there's a very big difference between what is intuition and what is imagination. So if someone hasn't done the work to get past their prejudices and to get past their biases and to see things objectively, it can be very, very tricky. Now, I'll give you an example. So Mercury, Neptune can be someone who takes in too much advice from other people, right? Or like, let's say that they're in like a discord with they're having like a fight with their partner or whatever, their boyfriend or their girlfriend, and they go to a friend who is secretly wants them to break up, and that friend gives them advice. Oh no, you should break up. They might actually, not saying that every single one will, but like they're more prone to listen to advice like that, right? So it's really, really important for them to think, to really, for any big decisions, to really think things over, and know who you can trust, because there can be deceptive people. And also, because it's Neptune and Mercury, it means that other people's, that you can actually, your mind can be like a sponge for other people's thoughts and other people's ideas. So they might not be representative of your ideas, but there can be that sort of effect. So alone time is very, very important. Now, my observations with it is sometimes it's just that there can be like a lot of paranoia. There can be this feeling of having to like over explain to them certain things, or them thinking you're lying to them when you're not. So yeah, and sometimes things that are very logical to most take extra explaining to some people who have this aspect. Things that you don't think you should have to explain, it should be self-evident. But then when it comes to like very high level abstract, intuitive, types of thinking that is way more difficult for the average person, they might be way better. So obviously it depends on the whole chart, but yeah. Now also I want to say, like, Mercury retrograde can also be on there too, a Natal Mercury retrograde, but just because it turns the thought pattern within, and people with that are prone to overthinking. They're prone to be past oriented. They're prone to really be kind of like, especially if they have like a chart with like a lot of Cancer, a lot of signs like that, and aspects that kind of lead to like a Mars and Virgo, for example, right? They could be someone who's very, very ruminative, and it can almost be, for some people, like just this back and forth, this continual like this wheel, and it's just like they never quite it can lead to a lot of indecision and, like I said, overanalysis, and because karmically they're here to really analyze themselves and learn something about how they talk to themselves and how they and how that self-talk, because this is what Mercury and all these are all about, is that when you have a certain self-talk that then gets projected onto other people, right? Like with Pluto, with the Pluto one, it's like, if someone like that has a very negative view of themselves, well, then they're going to project that negativity most likely towards other people until they gain awareness of like, oh, this is something within myself. I shouldn't project that to onto this person, right? So that's a big part of these aspects, is to take control of them. Now, let me see. Another one while we're talking about Mercury, is Mercury in Pisces. I actually have that one, but I have it in a. I'm not gonna get into it, but it's a little bit of a different thing. I just have to write these times down, guys. So Mercury in Pisces is it's the same thing as like the Mercury Neptune I said, is that there's this certain fog that can be created where you're also mental fog, right? Where it can kind of create. Now it's very, in my Mercury video. If you go back to that, I have my best take ever on Mercury and Pisces and how it's actually can be a superpower, right? It can be the most intuitive and like connected to the gods, right? Mercury is communication, right? It is that pathway, and having connected to Neptune is, it works really, really well for anything spiritual. But when you come to the day-to-day work stuff, it can be really hard, and especially if you're in a very dense city or area with negativity, being Pisces in general, but Pisces Mercury in this case, you can take on a lot of these mental conditions or these thoughts, these ideas that are not yours at all, right? So it could also be really, really hard to get through the day and get through the routines because you're connected to Neptune. Neptune is the imaginary realm where everything is perfect, where everything is so good, and like it's that high spirituality. It's that but it's also that deception and that confusion. So finding mental clarity is the key thing, and when you're in a world that's very Capricornian, a lot of times like the greatest skills that someone that has Mercury and Pisces, of course, like I can think of various people who have like a very, very like Aries and Taurus, and then the only thing they have that's like that is Mercury Pisces. It's different than someone who has like a ton of Pisces and stuff like that, and planets like that, or signs like that. But it can be hard to kind of just find how you're valued and how your way of thinking, like especially in school, because think about school, think about a classroom, and it's people with Mercury and Pisces are very sensitive to other people, right? So if you're in a classroom, Mercury and Pisces people would do better learning outside, learning hiking, and most people would. But when you have that, it's almost your imagination is so good, your abstract thinking is so high, but sometimes like the very basic logical, like an example would be like it reminds me of this time when I was really, really young. I'm Mercury Pisces, right? And I always did good in school. I never really cared that much, but I always did good. I could memorize everything. But like my dad, there was this one time I got a 6 out of 10, or I did bad on this like history quiz, and my dad, my French dad, like literally took me and gave me like an 8-hour speech. I don't think Adderall was a thing back then. No, I'm joking, but like it wasn't. But I mean, he might as well have been like he wasn't, but he just gave me he was just very, very interested in lots of things, and he just gave me this massive he went so deep. It was like a little pop quiz, but he went so deep into like so much history, and then like I think I retook the quiz, and then I came back and I got 6 out of 10 again. I think I just got the 2 score, and it's because like it was kind of like a metaphor for Mercury and Pisces, like sometimes class is it's like you're just trying to understand this, but it's the whole thing. Neptune is the whole thing. So let's say right here. You have to bear with me. Yeah, so like I said, it's similar to the Neptune Mercury people, and there's also that understanding, because a lot of people who have Mercury and Pisces have Sun in Pisces. Not all, right? But there's that desire for escaping everyday life, right? To get out of there, the routine, the trend, and it can really be difficult for people like that to do well in school, to find that motivation to just do like very mundane tasks. Because, and I know this doesn't just go for this placement, but it's like they want the magnificent. They want something that truly inspires their creative side, something like music, something like that involves compassion, or that's fun, or whatever, right? So yeah, and like I said, like when you're in a classroom, I think a lot of times Mercury and Pisces, from my experience, like me and I can think of several people, are very good self-teachers, but not too good. I mean, it's like when you put your mind to anything, if you're good at it, you're good at it. But depending on the environment's just so important. So if the classroom is like a very like caged off place, and you're sitting in rows, like you might just get really distracted really easily, because it's like the mind is so sensitive, right? And the concentration is more difficult. So if you might like get distracted by other students, or and obviously like the boundaries are thin. So yeah, it can be difficult to not take on the thoughts and mental attitudes of other people. And I said, there's a need to tap into their intuition and find a life where this can play a huge role. What's this? I think it's like creativity, intuition, and being of service and all that. It's that battle of intuition versus logic. Okay. So, okay, then I talk about moon signs. So let me just write this down. All right. So I think Gemini moons, air moons in general, can have some trouble. Especially Gemini, Mercury moons. Gemini, Virgo, I feel like definitely can struggle with anxiety and different mental health issues, especially Virgo. But I'll talk about Gemini a little bit. What happens with Gemini and also Aquarius and maybe to a lesser extent Libra, is that the air moon sometimes has a lot of difficulty connecting with emotion, which you could argue, well, is that really like bad for mental health? Because isn't like feeling too many emotions the thing that's bad? I don't know. But I think definitely with Gemini, there's a certain speed, right? And that speed of processing and just that need for experience can lead to a lot of anxiety, because there can be a lot of a great feeling of angst when you're stuck in one place, or when you're kind of have to commit to something and sit still. So just constantly being on the fly. And then this is the thing with going back to Virgo, and also is the Mercury ruled moons, is the intellectualization of emotions. If anyone knows any Gemini moons, or is a Gemini moon or a Virgo moon, if you know them, it's that they can be very, 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 they can be the biggest experts at talking around and about their feelings and their emotions, but not actually feeling them, right? What I mean by that is, let's say you're in therapy, right? And the goal in therapy at some level is to not just like have a narrative driven conversation about your emotions. It's to actually open up a portal, to where you can kind of have some everlasting change. If you're just talking about something, if you're trying to break down, let's say you have I always say boulder in front of your path. I don't know. You have some big thing that you have to chip away at because it's blocking your way. You're driving. This is the worst example ever. You're driving your car down the road. You have an axe or something, and there's a big ball of something, and you have to break it down to be able to move forward, right? If you just look at it and talk about it, it doesn't do shit, right? Yes, bringing awareness to it, I get it, but I'm saying sometimes they can really run away from that, which can obviously come from their nurturing and whatnot. And I'm not going to get into that in this video, but yeah, just like that whole intellectualization. What I read about that, this can obviously create all types of mental health issues. It all stems from this air moon tendency, Gemini, to not want to feel the energy inherent in emotions. Emotions cannot be intellectualized. Having moon opposite Mercury can bring something similar, the battle of feeling emotions versus intellectualizing them. Yeah. Moon opposite Mercury also, right? You definitely, moon's definitely the opposition, right? Because it's like your emotions, I would say, yeah, the square as well, right? But like, your emotions are at odds. What makes you feel safe, moon, is at odds with how you communicate and how you think. There's tension there. Like, let's say someone has moon in Aquarius, Mercury in Scorpio, square each other, So they would, moon in Aquarius isn't necessarily someone who wants to go so deep into emotion. They can be quite apathetic, right? Not all the time, but typically, yes. Air sign moon. And then Mercury in Scorpio would be someone who, like, that's not even possible. What am I talking about? Wait, Actually, it is. Sorry, I just had a huge brain fart. I was thinking about the sun and Mercury. They can only be 28 degrees apart. The moon can be way more. So yeah, so it would just be difficult because the person on one end would be very interested in very beneath the surface topics and really wanting to go, very like kind of be the detective and interested in psychology, anything esoteric. But then their lunar nature, which really is everything, right? It's what really runs everything from beneath. Wouldn't want them to go into those very deep places, right? So there's that back and forth, and then it's like, where do you find the balance? You see, so that would actually cause a lot of, potentially cause like a mental health issue because your mind might take you to places that you're not emotionally comfortable being. That could be in research, that could be in conversations, right? It could be in a lot of different areas of life. So yeah, it's a very interesting one. Let me know if anyone has the Mercury and Scorpio Aquarius moon. My eyes still a little bit red. Yeah, it was so red yesterday from the traveling. I got like no sleep, but last night I got sleep. Okay, so right here. Aside from that, one of the biggest things that this is like based on like an old post I did on Instagram, and I thought like it'd be cool to just like go off some of these and kind of like give my 2 cents too. So aside from that, one of the biggest things that I see in clients and just in general is this need to control. The inability to go with the flow and let go can show up in many forms of mental health. Virgo moons come to mind. Scorpio moon with that Pluto rulership also. If you're born between 84 and 98, Pluto and Scorpio generation, you have a Taurus moon opposite that Pluto. That can be very tough. Taurus likes things to be the same and constant, and Pluto is always pulling at the intense transformational intensity and change. It's common to see this with a lot of 12th house placements and can cause all types of mental health issues. Okay, let's look at that. So I said need to control. I'm just gonna write that as like control freaks. So I want to also add to that a lot of fixed energy, Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, Aquarius, these can be very stubborn. People who have a ton of fixed. What's really interesting is like I've known a lot of Aquarius people in my life, right? I've noticed a lot of times the people who have sun, multiple planets in Aquarius can be super, super stubborn, but when they only have the sun, they can be like the alien types of Aquarius, the very Uranus types. I've noticed that. I'm not saying that's the truth for everyone. I can actually think of someone I know who has a ton of Aquarius, and she's not like that at all. She's very good with the flow. But I had noticed that, I have like a lot of examples of that in my head, right? Of people who you would think were more of the Saturn rulership side of that. So yeah, a lot of times like people who have a lot of fixed energy, they are very fixed on their identity. Like they're not wrong, like there's nothing in them that's wrong. Or they're not willing, like especially obviously Taurus, right? Like Taurus, Scorpio, like they're not more so Taurus, right? There's that whole stubbornness and not being okay with being wrong and changing their mind and taking risks, etc. So Pluto, as I said here, is very much so. Someone who's very Plutonian, the shadow manifestation of that, when they haven't done the work, Pluto, the shadow work, is being a control freak, right? So whatever, if it's Pluto square Sun, Pluto, in any conjunct any big planet, Pluto, on any big angle, whatever, right? The shadow of, or someone who's like a very Scorpio or 8th house person, that the shadow of that is a control freak. I can think of several. A lot of them are men who aren't into astrology, who have like extremely Plutonian charts, and they just have not come to. They just haven't answered the call. They just haven't answered the call, and it's manifested in them seeking external power and wanting to control everything in their lives. So a lot of times there's been betrayal and just very difficult things from childhood with like the squares and whatnot, that instead of like letting go and surrendering, which is like the highest energy of Pluto, they just fight it off and they need to control everyone and everything, right? Especially like in love, in Venus square Pluto, Venus opposite Pluto, especially Venus square Pluto, I was looking recently at this girl who's having like who's super toxic, with this guy. And I looked at her chart and I was like, I guarantee you, I just knew. I was like, this is a Venus square Pluto person, right? Like no one without Venus square, Venus opposite Pluto, usually it's a square, would be acting so manipulative and have just so much like negativity and this pattern of negativity. And I have Venus square Pluto, right? But like it's something you have to work on, of drama and shadow coming out in love life. And of course I looked and boom, Venus square Pluto. And then I looked at his and he had Venus opposite Pluto. So I was like, there you go. He opposites manifesting it. Yeah. So yeah, I said the Taurus, people with the Taurus and planets opposite Pluto, big time, big time, big time. Now, also I wrote a lot of the 12th house planets, a lot of 12th house planets can cause all types of mental issues. Yeah, it's because, hold on. The 12th house is the house of repressed energies, right? So these energies oftentimes early on in childhood get weakened, and the person either reclaims them and they become super powerful energies, right? Or they just push them far away in their psyche. I'm usually referring more to the inner planets, right? The big three, Mercury, Venus, Mars, but also, having Saturn in the 12th house, Jupiter in the 12th house, Pluto in the 12th house, more so, can be tough, right? But especially when you have a planet that you really, 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 really need to use a lot in your day to day, which is why you call them one major reason you call them the personal planets, because they have individual functions. Like I have my Mercury function, I have my Venus function, my Mars function, right? My Sun, my Moon, etc. So yeah, they can be very, especially like Mars in the 12th can be very, very self-sabotaging. Venus in the 12th, it can have like a very hidden element of it in love, and there can be some drama that comes from that. Way more, I'm kind of simplifying things, right? A lot of times Sun in the 12th is related to the father having been absent, either physically or metaphorically. Moon would be the mother often. That's like one of the areas where I really see like the Sun and the Moon really representing father and mother. And yeah, so I wrote, this is the house of repressed energies, and these energies can be very weak early on in life, and if they are not supported in some way, it can also create autism or schizophrenia. Yeah, that's true. This can also cause social anxiety. So many disorders can come from this. Now, why would that be the case? Well, what happens to people who are very, very 12th house, very Neptunian, is they spend a lot of time alone. They might not feel like they belong here. They might feel like there's something about them and then that can bring a ton of shame, right? Like if those, let's say that whole thing I said before about the energies being weaker earlier in life, and then like a stronger energies. Let's say that the kid goes to school and there's like kind of a bully ass kid it's like a stronger energy early in life, and it shuts down. Oh, you're stupid, Mercury 12th house. Like, your emotion. No one would say your emotions are stupid, but it makes someone feel like if they're Sag Moon, like they can't be expansive, like they can't believe, right? Something like that. So then what happens to that person, right? If they don't trust, if they spend so much time alone, they skip, this is where the psychology comes in. They skip important social developmental eras or periods, which then is very, very hard to fix later on, right? So this is like a lot of the interplay of psychology and astrology. That's why I love doing children's charts. It comes when you start to look at, okay, with this aspect, how, or this chart, how, what's my potential when it comes to having a certain type of childhood behavior, right? Like how, what when you look at someone's chart, obviously like there's so many factors that play into it, right? There's so many factors. What kind of school did you go to? What kind of country are you from? What kind of culture are you from, etc.? Your parents, your family, you can say like a lot of that's in the chart, but you get it, right? Like there's also something called free will, which is not in the chart. I believe that our free will is, and our soul is not, in a way it is, but it's kind of a whole complicated video, right? The astrology tells us, here, going in a different direction. I can tell my Mercury Neptune transit is done because I can really catch myself like going into tangents. But yeah, no, I mean, it's way different, guys. Like, yes, okay, like your moon sign is very connected to your soul, right? Obviously, your nodes are very connected to your soul. But there's a lot in our charts. And I think everyone's different, but there's a lot of people who have certain charts for a reason. Like, look, I'll give you an example. I know a lot of people who just are horrible with emotions, right? And they're here to get better with that. And then you look at their charts, and it's like they're all super. And think about water sign men. I shouldn't be talking, but I'm part of that. Like, I'm not good with that stuff. I don't like sentimentality. I'm not, I'm an astrologer in my own way, right? And I can be in touch with my feelings, but I'm like very, don't like, I don't know. I don't like, I don't, yeah. But a lot of guys are way worse, right? Where it's like they won't touch that. And it goes for women too. So you see that a lot where people, like, that's kind of how I do astrology is I think like, okay, why does the person have the chart they have based on their karma? And there's way more than just those, but okay, that was a detour. So besides the 12th house where I said, so this can cause, okay. Yeah, so many disorders can come from someone who has, what else is 12th house? Escapism, right? Someone might not feel, they might feel like they want to escape reality so they could get into drugs, alcohol, anything to kind of push them away from who they are, the shame that comes with, in their minds, that comes with who they are. Okay, so next, depression. So I wrote, at the time first. So when it comes to depression, I've spoken a lot before about Capricorn moons or Saturn aspects to the moon. This is creating, hold this here. This is creating emotional barriers to vulnerability, and it makes one want to control and govern how one expresses their emotions. Screaming now. There is a need to restrict emotions to not show weakness. Many people with this had to grow up earlier than they should have. I should have said had to grow up faster and earlier than they should have. I always say that cat moons need to liquefy their these crystallized and stuck karmic emotional patterns in order to move forward and live happy lives. They are here to do that and break this continuous cycle. These people will literally disappear from the planet and go into deep depressive periods that last a long time. Been texting with them each day, well, suddenly they may disappear for a while, and cat moon depression is the heaviest feeling. I have been around my fair share of cat moon people, and when they are not happy or depressed, you feel that happiness, that heaviness, even if you are in a massive house. It's just, and they're not even taking it out on people. You feel it so heavy, right? Saturn's heavy; it's rocks. I don't know if that's the reason, but yeah. It's just very, very heavy and deep. So it takes a lot of patience to get through to someone like this. So okay. So Capricorn moon / Saturn. Look, people talk a lot about Capricorn moons, and I want to just say that I love Capricorn moons. At the end of the day, like a fair share of like my closest people that I trust the most have Capricorn moons. I just want to put that out there first. Now, I will say that post 30, life gets better, easier when you do the work, but it's demanding. You have someone who has a need to be an authority figure, a need to contribute to the world, but based on their whole chart, if they're not in a position where they feel like they're being useful to society, and they're being it can be kind of service, but really like where they're doing something that's useful. That could also be making a lot of money, right? Or being very successful. Like, unfortunately, one thing Capricorn moons, a lot of times they care a lot what people think of them. I'm not saying that's something that every Capricorn moon has. I can think of like 10 10's a lot. I can think of 5 like right off the top of my head of people who have Cap moons who are not like that. Usually it's women who, I'm just going to be honest, usually women with Capricorn moons struggle way less. Like I know a ton, yes, they had to grow up early, but because, developmentally, when you're a little girl, and you're growing up, you have your girlfriends, you guys talk about things like feelings, blah, 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 blah. Little boys, I have a whole article about this. They are told to toughen up, they play sports, they're not able to process what they need to process. And then Capricorn's a very masculine sign, so it's kind of just like toughen up, work hard, get over it, and then they just bottle everything up, and then eventually, it leads to the like I said, those crystallized, stuck emotional patterns, which can be very depressed energy. So, Capricorn's moons nearly always had some type of, a lot of times, something with the parents, some circumstance where they had to, like I said, where they had to grow up earlier than they would have wanted to, and that takes away from their ability to just be a goofy kid. And sometimes they can be overly serious or overly perfectionist or overly self-critical, or, just workaholics, people who have difficulty tapping into their inner child, right? The energy that you need to be able to just have fun and find your actual passions, and not just be doing something just to do it out of fear or duty. So, because Saturn, right, rules melancholy, right, in a way, not all Saturnians are melancholic. It's also the oppositions to the squares of the moon. I always tell a story, like when I was first starting astrology, and I was like obsessed with telling everyone I was like a Sag moon crusader of like, I met you, like, you have to learn astrology. It's probably annoying as fuck to be around. I wasn't that bad, but it's a long time ago. I was in Bosnia. I met this one guy. I don't know if I've told this story on here before. It's not that crazy of a story, but basically, most boring dude ever. Somehow I knew that his moon was Leo, and I was just like, there's no fucking way. Like, this dude is like the most mute person. Like, he's so lame. He was just like such a lame, critical, projecting, like, just one of those people that just sucks to be around, because you just feel like you have to like walk on eggshells, right? And I guess I used to be more accepting back then. I don't know. He wasn't mean and like bad to me. But anyways, we're at this like jazz, or this place that's like playing like the Bosnian music, traditional music. And I look at his chart, and what do you know? Saturn, exact opposite the moon. I know someone else who's a Pisces. It's a sun sign. But yeah, very, very critical, very like you wouldn't think Pisces, like very judgmental of other people. Saturn conjunct Sun exact, of course, right? So, but yeah, as I was saying, the Saturn can definitely have that, and usually brings the very strict parents, and it's kind of hard for that person to escape their shell, regardless of moon sign, for the first 30 years, until they actually like get their own spot and kind of create boundaries. But yeah, for Capricorn moon, it's really about speaking about emotions, which is so hard and can feel so cringy for a lot of them. But there's a certain magic that happens when they either find an outlet, or just something, right? When they find something that it could even be writing. It could even be one friend or a therapist, right? Or volunteering is huge. Something that makes them feel useful and that makes them feel like they are at their full capabilities is huge. And but like, it's not just that. It's like, that's a starting point. But then, you could be a Cap moon who works. But then it's like, how do you speak about, what other placements do you have that are either pushing about? Because your moon is what you need to feel safe. So the Capricorn moons, they also need that structure. But I know a lot of Capricorn moons who tell me that, like one Capricorn moon I know, she told me she had like a best friend. It took her 3 years to like actually like trust and open up to that person. Now, I'm not saying, I think having trust issues is I'm not gonna say good, but I definitely have them, and I think it's just like a pretty logical way to approach this current reality with how people are. I'm just being honest. Like, a lot of people are shit. So if people, are shit, you should probably have your guard up and not trust easily. I agree with that. I'm just saying that there's extremes. There's times where there's great people, and they definitely deserve your trust, or to kind of like know who you are. But sometimes the Capricorn moon wants to keep up appearances so much, or wants to, in some cases, right, or just doesn't want to admit, because remember, Capricorn is it's the 10th house is Capricorn. It's the goat. It has so much endurance, and it's the person that's always, it's the masculinity, right? Cancer is very feminine. It's femininity. Capricorn's masculinity. So it's like they do not want to admit weakness. That's the whole mind fuck. Is that, I don't know why I say F, is that they will be they will be the people who will say everything's good when it's not good at all, right? That's a lot of times how Capricorn moons are. So you kind of have to deal with them differently, right? Like you kind of have to like take their clues. Like they won't necessarily open up to you in a normal way. But a lot of times that's what I like about them is that their actions are what speak, you know? So they might not like be, and this is how I like my people. Like I'd rather have someone who I don't need someone telling me all these amazing, nothing, things, but then all I care about is how you are, your actions, and I think Capricorn moons, a lot of them have very good fundamentals, just as humans, even and a lot of times, even if they are suffering with depression or if they are having issues, like they still, can be very loyal people. So I just want to shout out Cap moons there. But yeah, it is very useful to have if you have the Saturn and Capricorn moon, and even like Scorpion moon also. I'm not going to bring that in there right now, but it's very useful to think about the alchemizing process of like how the emotions are meant to be liquid, right? Like not that you have to be like crying or emotional all the time, but like there's certain things that it's like there's a flow of water, like a waterfall, and so imagine that waterfall gets stuck and frozen. So it's like how do you overcome that? Like when you find those, it's being able to liquefy them to be able to talk about these things, to be able to, because like really they take away your power, they take away one's power, whether it's from the past or whatever. Okay, maybe I'll freestyle a little bit. My mind just went to Cancer placements. I don't know why. Not that Cancer placements are all like this, but I think, okay, low vibe Cancer can be extremely obsessed with the past, right? Obviously, Cancer rules the past. So if someone has like a lot of Cancer, fourth house placements, whatever, what can happen is that they can be super, super past oriented. And especially if there's like, like let's say difficult planets on the IC or just something that represents, different aspects that represent like a very difficult childhood. You could have two siblings. One's like very saggy, one's very cancery. And the very saggy one, Sag rules the future, or is very futuristic, right? Could have easily like moved past that. It maybe didn't affect them as much. Trauma or different life circumstances affects different people in different ways. So what could have happened with the Cancer one is that they could be very, very stuck in that, right? They can be very, very stuck in that, and it can just be really tough for them to get out of it, right? And I've seen that, especially with like Mercury, Cancer. With Mercury Cancer, it definitely can be like the mind really connected to the childhood, really connected to family. So, you have to understand that with people who have a lot of Cancer placements, that they will be more affected by divorce, right? Typically, they will be more affected by rupture in the family, and yeah, that's kind of like one example of how astrology kind of shows us how we have to really look at different people. You have to really understand someone's chart, understand who they are, to understand how they react to something, right? I think my divorce example is a really good one, right? Like if parents get divorced, you have like a very like Sag Jupiterian. One of the kids is like that, and the other one's like very Cancer. Like psychologically, like the Cancer one might not talk about it, but it might hold him or her back a lot. While the Jupiterian, it's all about perspective. It's being able to see the big picture, right? So, yeah. Okay, other mental health placements. So, sixth house moon is a big one, right? Virgo moon, sixth house moon, basically when you have that, oh, this pen's like breaking down. like I said before, like there's always, I've said this many times, like with Virgo placements, there's always a million reasons each day and each moment to worry about something, right? And you're so detail oriented with a Virgo moon that you see everything, you observe everything. And it's very easy to get very down on yourself, right? Because you're so observant that you observe all the ways in which you're not good enough, or all the ways in which you come short. So a big thing for Virgo moon is to try to calm the mind down, because it can be very hyperactive. Now, sixth house moon is a big one. Regardless of the sign, sixth house is what you deal with on a day-to-day level, right? So a sixth house moon means you deal with your emotions on a day-to-day level. Now, what does that mean when I say that? It means that not everyone has to go through each day feeling emotions deeply. So obviously in certain signs, this would be a lot more draining and difficult. Like even in a solar return year where your moon's in the sixth house, let me know if that's happened to you. It's a super emotional year, right? It's a year where you feel like you're constantly having to deal with and manage emotions that are coming up, right? They become very common in your life. So when it's in your natal chart, that's just a reality. And it's just interesting. I've seen this with Cancer moons, Aquarius moons, Scorpio moons, Virgo moons, goes on. And moons that are very badly aspected. And these people, like, it's very important to find a daily routine that meets what your moon sign or what your overall moon is asking of you, right? Because if you don't, you're just screwed. Like really, you're screwed, because it's not just there in some other house. It's in the house that's based on your day-to-day routine, So it's like you kind of have to set your life up to align with that. Okay. God damn, this pen's like broken. Oh shit, I didn't write down the time. Whatever. What else? I wrote, okay, but really I need to speak a little bit about transits. Because I'm still, and having going through, okay, I wrote this like a year ago, I think, through the most difficult transits when it comes to depression, and that is Neptune square moon. Okay, I wrote this 2 or 3 years ago then. It has literally made it so difficult for me to be consistent and to enjoy the things that I tend to always enjoy. This transit, whether it's squaring or opposing your moon, can really make you not feel like yourself. Oh, let me talk about Neptune. And it lasts years. That's how I wrote it. Saturn on the moon can really starve. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about, transits to the moon that's what you need to look for, okay? Now also, I'm gonna call this like transits. God damn, this pen. Come on, I have like more pens in that room, but I don't wanna pause this. Okay, so fucking pen. Okay. Anyways, so yeah, Neptune to the moon, even to the sun, and just Neptune transits in general, they isolate you. They push you away. Like I've had the last 18 months, and even before that, where I felt so alone. And I moved to Argentina, it's just like you don't feel like yourself. Like I said, you don't feel like you have your normal vitality, and you only really realize, I still haven't even realized the benefits. Like mine's not completely over. Like later this year, it's kind of retrograde back, but it's very hard to not fall into a state of like depression or a state of just melancholy or just less energy, less socially active. It's almost like I would be very curious to see some like scientific studies, what happens cognitively for people going through these transits who don't know they're going through them, right? But I've just seen it time and time again where especially like even if you add the sun, because I went through, if you guys don't know, I had like the square to my moon, and then right after that, the conjunction to my sun and my Mercury, while all my entire progressed chart was in Pisces. So it's like, but yeah. So it's really hard to put into words. That's the thing about Neptune. It's very, very hard to put into words, but you become a way more humble version of yourself, right? You really start to like, you can even look at, especially to the sun too. It's almost like a more silent type of what's the word, enlightenment, right? That's like what this astrologer told me, like probably 10 years ago. It's like it's like the most humble. It's like a kind of I can't think of a better word, like spiritual enlightenment. It's like you go through so much during that period, but it's so subtle, and it kind of strips away all the things, like so many of the things that are so nice from your life, and then you are, most people kind of come out, if they don't turn to like hardcore to like drugs, because that's like what Neptune, the shadow is, like drugs, alcohol. A more humble, and even some people who do, like a more humble, a more grateful, and a more, I want to say Jesus-like. I don't know. I'm not even religious, but like that's just the vibe it gives me. Jesus is like very Neptune. That's so crazy. I see like on my mom's window, it looks like it's like some, I don't know if it's like a hummingbird that did that, or it's like a scraped, it's like into a Jupiter sign. That's crazy. Maybe I'm supposed to talk about Jupiter. Maybe I will. Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about Jupiter. It's not really mental health, but yeah. Okay, so Neptune is tough, and especially like when you have energy, a certain energy level that you're supposed to get to. Let's say you have a demanding job, very masculine, like kind of like job or career. Going through Neptune transit is the last thing. Like Kylian Mbappe, football player, French. He went through a few really tough years, right? He's like the best. He, won a World Cup was he 18? Nearly won one again at 22. Now he's 25, I think, or he's 26. But regardless, he's had like 2 years where he's just been off, right? He's not off. He's still one of the best players in the world, but he's definitely like not who he was before. And I looked at the astrology, I'm like, of course, he's a Sag sun, and he's had Neptune squaring his sun. And now it's done. I told my friend, I was like, watch this next season. The season's coming. He's going to absolutely kill it. And it was just funny. The astrology is so obvious. Like I was looking at his whole life. Like Neptune can bring like he got accused of rape, but I don't think it ever happened in Sweden. I think there's so many. I can't remember. I wish I could remember. The way I broke it down to my friend, it was like he's not even like an astrology guy, but it was just undeniable at that point. Like I was like, this is literally the archetype of Neptune. Like escapism. Like there's some of that, I think. Like going out to clubs more, like not just that loss of that loss, not feeling like that motivation as much, right? Being a little bit less focused, that's all it takes, and having Neptunian shit happen, which could be something like that, or being falsely accused. That's a Neptunian. Something very Neptunian to be falsely accused for something, or poisoned, or whatever, lied to. Cheating scandals, all these kinds of things were coming forward, right? So that was Mbappe was a good real life example of that. Now, what else are we at? So Saturn, yeah. So Saturn moon is tough. It doesn't last forever, but that can be like, I've noticed that when people go through Saturn moon transits, it's like it can be very, very sad things happening. I just went through it. What the fuck am I talking about? Yeah, so not like I went through it this year, right? Yeah, because I'm 21 Sag moon. So yeah, it's a period of time where you just need to like dial in, because there's a certain numbness that can come, and especially if you're in a relationship, when you go through any of these transits, like you should be aware of them, because you can start to project what's coming up within you, because the Saturn moon can just make you a lot less fucking happy. Let's just like be very, very easy. Let's explain it in a very easy way. It can just make you less happy. Like it can make things feel less like they mean less. Like it's harder to. It can make someone more serious, right? So And it can also bring a lot of very challenging emotional occurrences in your life. Things can happen. Like I know someone whose dog passed away on the exact day that Saturn was square his moon, or his dog disappeared. Very, very sad. So yeah, like I wrote, Saturn on the moon can really starve the moon of what it needs most: emotional nourishment. These people really need to get therapy or something similar. Then I wrote, but the most important thing, in all caps, is to understand your moon sign and what you need to be happy. Any moon sign can become depressed. For example, if you have an Aries moon and your sense of adventure / excitement and individualism gets taken away from you, you will become depressed. The same thing with a Pisces moon who is forced. I should write this down. Yeah, the same thing with the Pisces moon sign. Got this pen. The same thing with a Pisces moon who's forced to have his / her dreams shot down and go into a monotonous job every day with no hope of ever doing that lofty and dreamy thing that they always wanted. They may also become depressed if they cannot enjoy time alone and have to always constantly be around someone or people. So yeah, so I can kind of continue on that and say that at the end of the day, like, understanding your moon sign, understand the key aspects from outer planets to it, and that really, like, that on its own will give you your sort of need for happiness. Like, I'm a Sagittarius moon. I get really depressed. Okay, I have trouble staying in one place for too long. When I get to a new place, like I just got here yesterday, it's like a complete restart. But even when I was in the beautiful beach of El Salvador, I had one day that was one of my most depressing days in a long time. I mean, such a gorgeous beach, like obviously it was so humid I had to stay inside a lot, not to get too burnt. But the point is that, as a Sag moon, there's that need for adventure, right? The Cancer moon, there's that need for that security, for that home. And I could go down the list, like I said, with Aries. Aquarius moons are definitely not happy when they don't have a friend group, a community, when they're not able to, like, truly be their individualized selves, when they're not able to have freedom in their lives, right? Geminis, they need activity, they need novelty, they need movement, right? They need to experience life. They can't just be in one place. It's also tough for making commitments because, like, you don't know, like, as a Sag moon, you don't know who you're going to be philosophically. You don't know what big revelations or a big chapter you're going to have. And it's the same thing for Scorpio, right? Scorpio moon is very much about psychics, emotional evolution, and in various chapters in your life where you're very different versions of yourself. So it can be hard to know who you're going to be. But a Scorpio moon emotionally, needs to be able to deal with their shadow, needs to be able to talk about their darkest feelings whenever it comes up, right? It's not that they're always living there, but they need to be able to go there when they need to. And I can keep going with every moon sign. People are going to get mad at me who are watching this when I didn't talk about your moon sign. Taurus, they need that stability. They need that, they need to know that they have, like, kind of like the foundation to their life, that's not rippled. I'm forgetting English, right? And and like a level of security. Same with, yeah. And it goes on and on and on and on. Leo loves to, needs to have fun. They need to have admiration. They need to have a level of child energy in their life, whether that's animals, whether that's friends that or lovers that kind of can replicate that fun energy. Not fun in, like, or their work, right? Leo moons, they need to have something they're doing that they're passionate about, right? And same with Sag. And then, yeah, Virgo. Damn, I just started blanking on Virgo. What do Virgo moons need to be happy? Order. I think Virgo, and not to make them sound nerdy or anything like that, like a Virgo moon, Virgos can be very spectacular, very ethereal beings, right? It's the opposite sign of Pisces. But overall, a Virgo moon, like, likes to have things organized in their way. They like to have, they tend to sort of have their way of doing things and their system, and they don't like when that gets messed with. I know there's way more I could say about Virgo moon. I would say intellectually, they love to learn. Same with Gemini, Sag moons. Um, and yeah, I'm sorry, Virgo moons. I'm blanking. I think it's because I was just talking about all the anxiety parts of Virgo moons. So Virgo moons it's not bad. It's the Virgo moons like to be of service, right? They like to be useful. They like to be appreciated for the little things they do. There you go. And they're detail oriented, so they like to have a way where they can like apply that. And Libra, I don't want to give the codependent kind of analysis. So like they need to be in a good relationship. They need to be in a situation where they're where there's balance and harmony, right? They need love, right? They need to be experiencing beauty and Venusian energy in some way, right? Whether that's living in a beautiful place, whether they feel like they're beautiful, not that they're vain or anything, but they like there's that need for serenity, that need for calm, that need for beauty, that need for really just it's about peace. Libra, so yeah, I think everyone wants peace at the end of the day, but okay, what have I not said? Scorpio said, Sag, I talked about, Capricorn, yeah, I already talked about Capricorn enough, but like, yeah, just wanting to have a level of, commitment to the world and something important, something they care about, and like they're useful, feeling like what they're doing is good and contributing to the world in some way, and that they are fulfilling their potential, right? And Pisces moon, as I said, yeah, they need to feel as though, I already talked about Aquarius, right? Aquarius also, there's that humanitarian level, and Pisces moon, it's like, they need to feel okay where they're at. Like they need to feel, and this goes for all the water moons, like they need to feel like their environment which they live in is enabling their Neptunian side, their imaginative side, right? They're not around negative people, and that they're not being gaslit and told, that the way that they are naturally is bad. They need to be able to kind of balance out the way the world already is, which is very Saturnian, with the way they are, and very Neptunian. If there's too much of one, it's not good. Or if they're pushed to be too Saturnian, they can really go against their actual nature. Ooh, one thing I totally forgot about. I don't know what happened to the transits, tough transits part. I had a whole list. Where'd it go? Yeah. So I didn't say this, but I was gonna say like when the progressed moon is in Scorpio, that's another time where you gotta like figure out, Google, calculate my progressed moon. It changes every 2.5 years. Whenever it's in Scorpio, a lot of times that's times where myself included, last time I was there, that's when my life fell apart. Right? I talked to a million people. Their lives fell apart when their progressed moon was in Scorpio. So, and then after Scorpio, it enters Sagittarius, the most positive sign, moon sign. Okay, where was that? Yeah, and like I said, with Pisces moon, there's a need for alone time. There's a need for being your own energy, and I think a lot of Scorpio too, like a lot of moon signs and people have that need. And as you saw, like with Sag, Aquarius, it's very much about freedom and being, Aries, and being in control of your own life, not having someone pinning you down. It can really feel like like you're in prison, or like your relationships can start to really feel like that. So it's just very interesting, like how different people's natures, it's reflected in their astrology. And it, when you look at people just looking at their face and not knowing anything about them, you kind of like assume that these two people would be relatively similar, but like one of them could love, let's say there's, I'm thinking about like two women, right? I'm like, which one do I want to date? I'm not like that, right? But I'm just saying, like, let's say I have a choice. These two women love me so much, and I don't know anything about astrology. They look very, very identical, and one of them is super, super, let's say like the Aquarius Sag archetype, like needs the freedom, needs the space. The other one's like very much like the Taurus Cancer. I'm not saying that those signs are clingy or anything like that. I'm saying that more homebodied, traditional, whatever. So it's just very interesting. Like and a lot of times what happens is that the ascendant won't match the moon, right? Like if the ascendant's Leo but the moon is Pisces, you're gonna think the person. I'm like this. I'm a Leo rising. I guess I'm a Pisces sun, Sag moon. But I have a friend / client, amazing, and she has a very similar chart to me. She's a Pisces also, Leo rising and Leo moon. So I guess that's not a good example. But I've just definitely met a lot of people who have this like either Leo or just like a very external energy that make like satirizing, anything that makes them seem very social, but then they're like actually like very, very private. And like people like, and like the girl I was just talking about, like she was telling me the other day, like people walk up to her and are like, she's like, girls always walk up to me and tell me like, oh, I thought you were going to be a B word, or I thought you were going to be like, you were just really intimidating, and I thought you were going to be like super like lame. So it's just very interesting. Like sometimes the way people look is so, that's why like you can never judge a book by its character, right? You really can't, and astrology shows that. You can have two people, like I can just think of so many people who, based on just how they look and how they carry themselves, like from like, let's say Instagram or just in general, like you would make assumptions because they look like other people who look like that, who are certain ways, but then you get to know them and they're just like the nicest people. That's why you have to like just talk to people and see how they are, and not just enter with assumptions. Anyways, that's not the point of this video. Okay, what right here? In terms of anxiety, Virgo and Gemini moons are the obvious ones, being ruled by Mercury. Wait, I already read this. What the heck? The heck? Read this twice? Let's see. Virgo moons can overthink everything. The same goes with Mars and Virgo. Oh, okay. These timestamps are going to be crazy. So yeah, so the same can go with Mars and Virgo in a hard and with Mars and Virgo. Mars in hard aspect to the moon also creates this nervy anxiety. It does, yeah. It can create this like very like especially Pluto moon too, obviously, but it can create this very tense energy, right, where you really have to work out and move around and get that energy out. But yeah, moon square Pluto can or moon square Sun, but especially moon square Mars can usually have anger issues, or just there tends to be that kind of bubbling beneath the surface. And depending on the whole rest of the chart, that's like kind of how it comes out. But there is a need to find ways to kind of like understand the triggers, understand when I'm angry or this and that. And Virgo Mars can be really, really tough, because Virgo Mars can be just like the most just perfectionist, overly self-critical of other people, like of themselves, but it's where it always starts. But then of other people, and just like calling people out and stuff. It's not easy. It's not easy. Okay, so I wrote, but I'm not going to go any further into this topic today. Maybe I'll do sort of blah, blah, blah. Yeah, anyways, there's so much more I could say. I hope you guys enjoyed. So let me know if anyone wants to get a astrology birth chart reading by me, live or recorded. Go to my website, jesseinnocentastrology.com. I promise you will not be dissatisfied. We will go as long as we need to if it's live. The recorded ones are usually around 2 hours. I don't really time them. They just go as long as they need to go. And yeah, if you just book it straight away, you can. I'll reach out to you, or you reach out to me on Instagram at jesseinnocentastro. It's the same name as this, just add Astro, and I'm on Instagram. I have a lot of posts on there that are really good. And let me know what you think in the comments. If you watched the whole video, let me know too. I really appreciate everyone. Thank you so much. Ciao from California, where I'm at right now. All right, bye-bye.